This is Twit. Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today, recorded on November 13th or December 28th, 2015.
Tech News Today is the show where we talk about the tech news of the journalists who report it. Welcome to the show. I'm Mike Elgan.
And I am Megan Morrone. For our special holiday shows, we'll be looking at some of the biggest and most controversial stories of the year.
And today we're talking about home automation and the Internet of Things. I don't know about you, but I love the idea of home automation, Megan. The problem is that I can never pull the trigger on buying some of this stuff. I know you have a couple of devices. You have the Amazon Echo, which I do too, which is fantastic. How much do you use the Amazon Echo, for example?
I don't use it as much as I would if it could do everything. You know, it doesn't have Apple Music, so I end up, using that. And you could pair it with your phone, but I don't do that often. It has just like low range Bluetooth, I think. So my phone would have to be right there. My kids use it sometimes to help with their homework. I think we've almost exhausted the jokes that Alexa can tell us, but not quite. So that's about how much we use it.
By the time your kids are in university, Alexa will be like the Star Trek, the Spock, examiner. They're going to be ripping through facts, and it's going to be the new Wikipedia. That'll be another challenge. Yeah, I have the Amazon Echo. I really like it. I use it pretty much like you do as well, although we're always doing a lot of cooking, so we use a lot of timers. Constantly use it for timers, 10, 15 times a day for that. I also have a Ring video doorbell, which is a sponsor of Twit. I should point out. I did buy it, and I do love it, and it's one of my most heavily used home automation devices. It's not connected to anything, though. I know that in the future, you're going to have a Ring video doorbell or something like it connected to the lock, which is connected to the lights and all that stuff. When you walk up, it'll recognize your face, and all that stuff is coming. We talk a lot about all the amazing things that can happen. My older son, Kevin, has every home automation thing you can imagine. He uses the Amazon Echo to turn on his lights, and he's very specific about it. He can say, turn on the left living room light, and he's very much into it. He's got lots of home automation. But I just can't, I have a certain amount of money that I'm willing to spend on gadgets I don't feel that I really need. And there are all these other things I want. And like you, I buy Apple products, so that pretty much burns through all the money. So,
would you call the Apple TV like an Internet of Things device?
Well, it's supposed to be eventually, isn't it? It certainly isn't now. And I don't have an Apple TV, nor do I have a TV. But I like the idea of it. And so this is we're going to get into some of the platform things about what works with what needs a hub, what doesn't need a hub, and I think it's really confusing. I'm glad we're talking about this right now, because 2016 is going to be the year, among other things, of home automation, of the Internet of Things, and I think everybody's confused. So,
right. Well, let's get less confused.
All right, let's get less confused. We brought in somebody who knows what she's talking about. Our guest for this episode is Fortune senior editor Stacey Higginbotham, who writes extensively about new developments in the world of home automation and the Internet of Things. Stacey, welcome to Tech News Today.
Hi, thanks for having me. And I should tell you first off, your Ring doorbell is actually going to work with the Kivo locks. So if you want to stick an automated door lock there, boom, when people are at your door with the Ring, you can actually tie it into the Kivo lock, and you can unlock it when you want to let people in.
That's very cool. That is great. That's great news. I'm looking forward to that sort of thing and other. I just like it so much. I wish I had more doors. I pretty much have a front door and a back door. And the back door, nobody ever comes in through the back door. But I'd love to have more doors so I can have more video doorbells. But anyway, that's my first world problem. Let's start with a basic fundamental question. What is your definition of the Internet of Things, and how does that relate to home automation?
So my definition of the Internet of Things is actually, it starts with connecting all the things, grabbing data from those things, and then bringing intelligence from those things and starting to make smart decisions. So the end goal is not the connection or the data, it's the intelligence derived from those two things. And that's kind of complicated.
So do you find that a lot of people, a lot of companies are bringing out devices that don't have that intelligence part, that they're just trying, I'm going to connect all the things, and they're not really sure
God,
why?
Yes. It's like, put a chip in it. I mean, I've got so many devices where I'm like, really? I mean, turning it on and off remotely is not the reason why I'm buying a connected device. I mean, I'm not going to pay 3 times the cost of a connected outlet just to turn my curling iron off remotely. I don't have a curling iron, but pretend that I had more hair and I curled it. Then that's not why I would buy it. So that's kind of where we are. That's where we were like last year and the year before. Where we're going next year is going to be like, now people are adding algorithms and intelligence to things. They're trying to make it smarter, but the jury's still out on whether or not that's going to actually work.
Well, now you're touching on 2 issues that I think are potential interesting gotchas for the home automation revolution, if you want to call it that. One of them is the fact that we have multiple competing standards. Now, I'm walking around with this belief that the reason we have united standards around lots of things, HTTP standards, all the IP standards that we use to make the internet possible, most of those, the foundations for those emerged when nobody was making billions of dollars on the internet. There really wasn't any money to be made. And so there was a lot of agreement, there was a lot of goodwill about having these universal standards. But now we're in a world where everybody's just making a fortune on the internet or trying to. And so they want to have control over the standard. And I don't understand how in 2015, 2016, you have agreement over things like standards for networking on the Internet of Things. Are we headed for the world that it looks like we're headed for, where we have all these multiple competing standards and nothing talks to other things, and therefore the Internet of Things vision kind of doesn't really work as envisioned?
So I'm an eternal optimist, so I hope not. I think there's a couple different problems here. One is there's a couple different places where we need to standardize. There's the radio level, and that's where we've got Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, Zigbee, Z-Wave, and then we've got the brand new Thread standard. And then there's another layer, and that's kind of what I like to think of as the HTTP layer. And that's where we're going to have devices that say things like, hey, yo, I'm a light bulb and I can do the following things. And we also need things to be standardized at that level too. So right now you've got standards at both of those levels. And you can't have 5 different radio technologies in every single device. That's just crazy talk, right? And what we're seeing there is probably going to be a standardization around Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and Thread is my bet. But we're not going to see that until like 2017. And then at that, oh, go ahead.
No, I was asking, where does like the HomeKit versus Google's Brillo, like where did those stand? Is that another level of standards that we're talking about?
So that's where it gets a little complicated, because HomeKit and Brillo's just weird because Brillo's actually the standard level up. HomeKit actually spans both layers. HomeKit is both like, it's not actually a radio level, but it is because it talks to Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, and because it deals with like security at the networking layer, and you have to have a special chip. It's kind of like a de facto radio level standard anyway. But both of those deal more at the next layer up, which is like I'm a light bulb, I do this. And that's where you see things like all join, and I can't remember what Intel's OIC standard is called right now. IoTivity. And that's where I think not Brillo, but Weave, both Nest Weave standard and maybe Google's Weave standard, because they're 2 separate things, both called Weave, are going to play. And see, this is why it's so confusing. So in that, I don't know if we're ever going to get anywhere right there. Right now, the big brands, and I'm not even talking about the tech brands, but even things like Procter & Gamble just came out earlier this week in support of like Thread. I think the big brands are worried right now about getting everyone around like a solid radio standard. So they're like, we're not even going to worry about a layer up right now.
Yeah, it is confusing, and Google never helps in these situations, because they often have a highly complex story to tell, and nobody really ever knows. Weave is, wait, what is this now? And they almost willfully confuse people, it seems like sometimes. Apple, on the other hand, is pretty good at making it feel like there's clarity. They have HomeKit. Do what we tell you and support HomeKit, and therefore everything will work as advertised. So why doesn't that work?
So HomeKit is a mess because HomeKit requires a chip, and for the end consumer, it's not even great. I'm not even going to say it's great. For the end consumer, it's still confusing because the implementation right now is still broken. So it just came out a little too early, maybe. But like the end consumer, when I tried HomeKit, it broke all of the things I had. And then the companies making the products that are HomeKit certified, they still haven't implemented HomeKit in all of the ways they're supposed to yet. So HomeKit still doesn't work the same way for all of your HomeKit products. So if you're a consumer trying to do things with HomeKit, it doesn't work the same way like Apple wants it to. And that's hard. And so that's a problem. And the other thing is it requires a chip. So there's a lot of companies out there who are building products and they're like, I don't want to add another chip to my stuff that makes it expensive, or I already have products in the market and I don't want to break compatibility with my older products. I mean, that's a problem. I think Apple's.
Yeah, I think from a consumer psychology point of view, Apple probably, if assuming they can get it together and make it work better and get more buy-in by companies that make home automation devices, I think that consumers will believe that, if I just go to the Apple store and buy a home automation device, it'll work with my Apple TV and my other devices, and it'll certainly work with my iPhone, etc. And that is a rare point of sort of warm and fuzzy consumer, happiness there because of the confusion in the category generally. Now, again, this, I'm not going to assume that Apple's just going to get it together, and I do agree with you that they were premature with this launch, even though it was even later than they thought it would be. Mm-hmm. Despite all that, are you surprised at how slow HomeKit is taking off as a platform?
No, because it is both premature in the sense of its readiness, and it's late in the sense that there's all these existing products already in the market. So no, I'm not surprised that it is not doing well at all in the market.
Well, in some sense, it's hard to test these products. I mean, they have like the Target, I think, open house is what it's called, where, there's a bunch of different devices and it's supposed to be laid out to, this works with that and that works with this. And I know CNET has their own smart house that they test a lot of these products. Is that why do you think this is failing? Just like not being able to test it in real world situations with real average people?
I think there's probably 3 reasons that it's failing. 1, these guys don't have a coherent story to tell someone why you should spend like $200. It's like $100 or $200 to buy one of these devices, right? Which is a lot more than a normal unconnected device. So that's 1. 2, there's a lot of worries about security still out there. And 3, there's a lot of worries about stability in terms of, well, crap, if I buy this today, in a year, is it going to work with anything else? Am I going to be obsoleted by a new platform from Google or Apple? And basically, I think there's not a lot of respect for the consumer. And I've written about this. I think there's a lot of tossing stuff out just to see if it'll work. And the consumers are really aware of that. Everyone I know who buys this stuff has a horror story to tell. And you're not going to install a $250 thermostat that takes for most normal people, 2 or 3 hours, and then, hope it works. So that's what I think the issue is. It's not that you don't understand the value proposition. It's just that you don't believe in it, and you're not going to spend that kind of money on something you don't believe in.
Yeah, you mentioned the $250 thermostat. The smoke detector from Nest is, I don't recall the price, but it's up there.
$100.
Yeah, and how many do you need? How many of your members of the family do you want to survive the fire? Take your pick. So, and there's another one out there that supports HomeKit called First Alert's One Link, and that is around $109 or $119, depending on which one you get. But I wanted to switch gears a little bit. You brought up the S word. Security is a huge issue. I feel like with this, and it's an unexplored issue, and of course the hackers will be exploring it as these things come out. But it seems to me that most home automation devices are spectacularly insecure.
That is true. Most of these have been. It's basically guys, startups. They're like, oh, I have an idea for a connected product. Let me go build it. Let me start a Kickstarter, and here, have it on the market. And then suddenly they're like, oh, oops. And they don't mean any ill-intentioned things by it, but I think they've got to come back from there, and that's the challenge right now. Is that now people are talking about security, and there's a couple of really positive things coming out from this. One is ARM actually in November at their TechCon released they actually brought their chip design for their smartphones and server chips. They brought the security in that down to the microcontroller level. And that actually is going to be important because it unifies kind of the security for kind of sensors and all these things in wearables. It brings it all the way across, all the way across the board. So you don't have to actually implement security on like a chip by chip basis, which will be really good for IoT. So that's one nice thing at that level. But there's still a lot of things like on the software side. I think the FTC is getting a little bit more aggressive, I hope.
So in terms of privacy and security, do you think that these devices are inherently insecure? And do you think that there is some kind of tinfoil hat stuff going on? You know, like I know with the Google's OnHub router, like they don't have a microphone in there because they know people will be really afraid if Google puts something in their house with a microphone. So there is a little bit of the kind of, companies like Google know that people there are a portion of people that are just like, I don't want anything to listen to me ever. My smart TV, if it listens to me, it's going to send everything, immediately to the wrong people. Do you think it's a bit of both, or is it mostly really insecure and the tinfoil hat people are right?
So there's a difference between security and privacy. And I will say that when it comes to technology, I am consistently amazed at the technology that allows companies to violate my privacy. So in the name of selling me ads, not usually in the name of like crazy surveillance. So I would say that people are probably right to be worried that companies are gathering more information about them than they anticipate. I'm less concerned about Google listening to my private conversations and laughing about, my conversations about erectile dysfunction or something than, a smaller startup sharing my, the fact that I have a nine-year-old daughter with, companies that will market to her in a way that's unethical. That I believe is happening, right? So that's kind of on the privacy side. On the security side, a lot of the hacks we read about are way overblown, but there are real security worries. And I think the idea of security by obscurity is probably going to become less important over time. As we add more of these devices into our home and people just kind of hack for the fun of it, because some of these things are terribly insecure, like really easy to hack. So I don't know if that's really a great answer for you.
No, that's good. I mean, it is. I often do conflate security and privacy, and it's good to have that reminder that they are very different.
I am concerned about another level of insecurity from the 1984 cyberpunk novel by William Gibson called Neuromancer, where I won't spoil it too much for those of you who haven't read it. And read it immediately. It's an awesome book. You've had all these years. Come on. There's actually somebody assassinates somebody using a automated lawnmower, and ever since then I'm like, okay, I'm really nervous about this whole category. So let's talk about something that I think is one of the most interesting and underappreciated facts in technology right now, which is this whole world of the Amazon Echo. Now, the three of us, we're having this three-way conversation. Each and every one of us has an Amazon Echo and uses it all the time. I mean, it's incredible. And yes, the general public is not taking up the Amazon Echo en masse. However, it's now in all these different major stores. So maybe this will be a huge thing in the near future. But I've noticed my own personal usage. I've stopped using Siri. I've wandered away from Google Now, even though I kind of like the idea of Google Now. But Google Now just doesn't give me enough information, and you kind of have to go looking for it to a certain extent. Whereas the Amazon Echo and Alexa, the virtual assistant that lives inside of the Amazon Echo, is always just there in the kitchen. I just talk. I may have my hands full. I might be doing the dishes. I might be doing something else. And by the way, she can hear me all the way from the other side of the house, which is pretty cool. I'm so confused as to why Google and Apple and other companies are letting Amazon take what I think is the future of the user interface for home automation. Do you have any explanation as to why they're so late to this category?
Man, I do not know. Like when the Google's On Hub came out and it didn't have the microphone and it didn't have all that in there. To me, like Amazon with we don't say the name because on our podcast, we people write in and complain. She who cannot be named. I don't understand why they just let Amazon blow them away in that category, because maybe it was privacy concerns, maybe because it is far and away the number one way I control my house. And I heard you guys talking before the show about how you don't have your lights hooked up. And I'm kind of like, Mike, why? I spent literally $400 on lights, connecting like lights for my downstairs just so I could control them with Alexa. And can I tell you, it is game changing. My entire house, like I really will spend probably $1,000, maybe even more, like connecting all my lights to Alexa. Because I did it. I'm sorry.
Well, what's so hard about turning your lights on and off like that?
It's not hard, and it's not hard at all. But just the ability to, like, as we're walking upstairs at night to go to bed, just saying, "Lady, turn off downstairs lights," or "Lady, turn off kitchen lights." I mean, or when we're snuggled in for a movie on the couch, and I mean, we're basically lazy. And you know what? In my house, I have a switch on the wall, I have voice control, and I have my phone apps, and I have a Hue tap. So I actually have like what was that, 4 or 5 ways to turn on and off lights? It's ridiculous. But always go to her. I always do.
She who
and my
shall
husband
not be
does too.
named.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we were also talking before the show about how, is it laziness, or do we just love the thrill of living in the future where we just talk to the lights and they obey? The thing and just to beat this dead horse until it's truly dead, this category of product doesn't become obsolete. So all of us early adopters, all of us influential people who are really into technology and who would inform other people what to buy as Christmas gifts or whatever, have because of this vacuum in the industry from the other big companies, have purchased this piece of hardware that never becomes obsolete. So we never need to replace. It's not like a phone where it's like in a year I'm like, oh, I got to get a new one. No, it's a really high quality speaker with a great microphone. It looks cool, and they are constantly updating the artificial intelligence in the cloud. And so they're blowing it, I think.
Not only that, but they've added blank voice services, so you will find that lady again, in other products. So she's already going to appear in like a speaker that you can attach to your refrigerator. It's like a kitchen speaker called the Trilby. You're going to see this. Like, I can't wait. You know what my dream product is?
What's that?
I want She Who Shall Not Be Named inside my Roomba. So I can basically say blank, vacuum my floor, and boom, there it goes. Just how awesome will that be?
That would be awesome. And in fact, a couple of months ago, a month ago or so, the automatic, which plugs into your car and detects what's going on electronically in your car, announced a partnership, which and support for Echo, and so now you can ask she who should not be named, how much gas do I have? Where is the car? That sort of thing.
Exactly.
It's incredible.
So yeah, that's, to me, the fact that, well, and Siri can't do this because my impression is that Apple really wants to keep all that data, personal data, locked down. And a lot of that data you have to start kind of sharing across the cloud and with other partners. And my impression with Apple is they don't want to do that. Now, why Google doesn't do that, I don't know. I really don't. It's beyond me. And Microsoft, same issue. Don't know.
Well, I think the reason that Amazon is ahead and made it their mission to get this device in our house is because I think their idea is that we're going to use it to buy more things. And that's what Amazon wants to do, sell us more stuff. All kinds of stuff. And so, I think there was, you'd reorder this, reorder that. I mean, it's the same with the dash buttons. I think that is why they're ahead of this, because they want to sell us everything, not just more Apple products or more Google products or more Google services, I guess.
It could be. Although I think I've bought a little bit of music, and I'm trying to think. No, I haven't re-upped on. I've bought some dog bags.
Yeah, I haven't. I was thinking about it today before I was planning. I knew I was going to talk to you, and I was thinking, oh yeah, I don't really use it for that. I that's part of my life. Like, oh, I need to get laundry detergent, and I need to do all these things, and and I don't really use it for that, because I think my idea is, I want to look at the options that I have to buy in different prices and compare them, and I couldn't do that with she who must not be named.
Indeed. Although I would think it would be great if you could have the Echo plus like a screen, maybe with a scanner on it, and you could start scanning things. That would be really kind of compelling as an option. And the screen would be really interesting because I just got back from like a smart kitchen summit. The screen would be fun to help me orchestrate like timers just as a visual element while I'm cooking. Because then I could be, if you set multiple timers, that can be a problem. Because you're like, oh, how much is left on the roast? But she doesn't know how much time is left on the roast because she doesn't know the timer for the roast. So there are some things, and I'd love to have like her read back recipes to me. So there's a lot that I'm looking forward to with the Echo. But today, having her control my lights and play bingo with the family is enough.
So. I haven't tried the bingo. In fact, Amazon is reportedly working on such a screen. The project is called Cabinet, and this was mentioned briefly in a Wall Street Journal piece a few months ago. And it's basically just what it sounds like, a screen for a touch screen for the Echo. It's like an Echo with a screen. And also, I would like to have a smaller Amazon Echo for the car. I'd like one for the office. I'd like some all over the house. I just love to be able to just talk and get Echo everywhere, not just near or within earshot of the kitchen. So anyway, we talked a lot about Amazon Echo, but that there again is it's for good reason, because this is the home automation device that is really working, that people are really using, that is a category unto itself, a virtual assistant appliance, where the big virtual assistant companies like Microsoft, Apple, and Google are completely AWOL for reasons nobody can explain. And Amazon's running away with it. And I think it's definitely their most successful product that they've developed in-house. So anyway, I enjoy mine. Well, Stacey Higginbotham, we have to let you go. Unfortunately, there's so much more to talk about. But if you're interested in home automation and the Internet of Things and artificial intelligence and other cool topics, go to fortune.com. Find Stacey's many articles there, and follow her on Twitter at GigaStacey. Stacey, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
You can subscribe to Tech News Today at twit.tv/TNT. You can also watch us live every weekday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1700 UTC. That's twit.tv/live. And if you're ever in the San Francisco Bay Area, come on in and watch us as part of our studio audience. You can send email to tickets at twit.tv. Of course, follow us on Twitter, Tech News Today TV.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Tech News Today. The show is produced by Jason Cleanthus. We are Mike Elgan and Megan Morrone. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.